Hi, everyone. Welcome to Career Conversations. I'm Meera Jogasundram, and our guest today is Simone. Simone has always been passionate about children. She turned this passion into her career and graduated as a foundation phase teacher in 2014 from Rhodes University in Makhanda, formerly known as Grahamstown, in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. She immediately started teaching in 2015 at a school in her hometown, Swakopmund in Namibia. For 5 years, she taught grades three and four, from languages to natural science. Although she thoroughly enjoyed it, she wanted a change and resigned at the end of 2019. The plan was to go to Costa Rica and teach English for 6 months. Everything was set in motion, and then the pandemic hit. I'll let Simone tell you all about it. Now, in 2023, Simone is a successful professional educator of adults, teaching English and German. While she misses teaching children and might go back to it one day, she has learned a tremendous amount and gained invaluable experience. Hi, Simone.
Hi, Mira.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
How are you feeling today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Tell us about your career journey.
Okay, so you've already mentioned the beginning where I started teaching in 2015 after my studies. And initially, I was only supposed to teach grade 3. But in that particular school, they preferred that a teacher take a class for 2 years at a time, just because after a year of teaching them, you develop a bond with them, and then after a year you have to let them go to the next teacher again. So they found it beneficial, especially with the little ones, that you do 2 years at a time. But that would mean that I would have to, the following year, 2016, teach grade 4. And I was afraid of that at first because in South Africa, foundation phase teacher means you are qualified to teach grade R up to grade 3.
What is
And
grade R? Sorry.
grade R is reception, so that is preschool. And although grade 3 and 4 aren't that different, I was a little bit apprehensive about it because I thought, oh no, I haven't studied that, Um, but my principal at that time said, teach grade 3 for a year now, and you will see that you won't want to let them go. And then you will learn with them as they go. You will also learn. And eventually I found that teaching grade 4 is just as much fun as teaching grade 3. And I really did love having the kids for 2 years. So I always taught grade 3 and then took them over to grade 4. Then I started again grade 3. And I did that for a couple of years, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I loved the children. I was very exhausted. And end of 2019 or towards the end, I decided, okay, I've taught at this school now for 5 years. I think I need something else. I can always come back, but I think I need a little bit of a change. And I had been in Costa Rica before in 2017, and I loved the country. Absolutely loved it. And I thought, okay, let me resign. And initially, the idea wasn't to go to Costa Rica. I actually didn't have any idea what I was going to do, but I resigned. And then December rolled around, and I was thinking about, what I could do. Maybe I would move to South Africa and teach there. I was looking into perhaps, an option to apply for permanent residence in South Africa, maybe go to Cape Town. I don't know. And in January 2020, I found, perchance, I found this. It's almost like an exchange program, but it's they have teachers from all over the world, and they send them all over the world. And I found this particular company. It's called Explore Asia, but they had recently added Costa Rica, even though that's Central America. And I thought, okay, I love Costa Rica. I've always wanted to go back. Why not do that for 6 months, maybe a year? So I applied. I did the whole interview process, the visa application, everything. And I thought, okay, now this is something I really want to do, because let's travel while I'm still young, and, I can always settle down later. And then in March of 2020, I flew to Germany to visit my sister. And the plan was then to come back home in April and then go to Costa Rica in May. And towards the beginning of the pandemic, I was already in Germany. And then the hard lockdown hit, and I was stuck. I didn't have a job. So I took it as a sabbatical of sorts. And I traveled as much as you could then within Germany, because all the flights were cancelled. Namibia also had a very hard lockdown. And then I was only able to return in, I think, June or July of that year, so 3 months later, to Namibia with a repatriation flight. And that obviously changed my entire direction, because I postponed Costa Rica at first. Then it became clear that you could not travel anytime soon, so I postponed it again. And eventually, I just had to let go of the idea, because it was so uncertain of what was going to happen in the different countries. In my country, in Costa Rica, with traveling. So I ended up not going.
And
And then I was looking for a job, but I knew also that I didn't want to go back into the classroom, because back then it was very uncertain with COVID and everything. And I was a little bit scared, and I thought, okay, the exposure and everything. And then I slowly but surely started one-on-one tutoring, because there I could control the setting and the regulations, because we had very strict regulations in Namibia. And I started tutoring some of my past students, actually, just one-on-one, for maths or natural science or languages. And then I was looking for online jobs, because I thought, okay, this is now, I can't travel, so this is an opportunity for me to do this. And all the schools were online in any case. Nobody was doing in school. And so I found some adverts, and I had some connections. And so I applied to Wall Street English, or the Swiss school. And I actually forgot about it, completely forgot about it. And I just went about, tutoring, and doing odd jobs, really. Until I got an email and said, okay, well, are you still interested? Would you like to have an interview? And I did. And here I am, still teaching online with the same school. I've also in between done online teaching on Amazing Talker, which is another platform, but that didn't suit me so well. So I eventually let go of that. And I taught at Lingoda as well. And then this job became more or less full time. So eventually I didn't have time for other platforms anymore. And in between, when I was still in Namibia, um, I also tutored a child one on one at his home. Um, and he's neurodivergent, which means he learns completely differently. He has different needs than the average child. And that really taught me a lot more than the one on one tutoring did of other kids, um, just because it challenged me. And it was very different from what I was used to, in a good way. And I really learned a lot. And then I also started realizing that I do have a passion for special needs education as well. So that would perhaps be a long term goal, I suppose. But I realized that I am able to do it. I am good at it, and I can connect with the children on their level according to what they need. And that I did for a year.
Okay, speaking of challenges, how were you challenged when you were teaching this boy?
I was challenged professionally as well as personally. So that meant I had to read up on his condition. And I had to educate myself. I mean, there were some things that I knew and some things that I intuitively did right. But I did have to do quite a bit of research. I worked very closely with the mother, because the mother knew her child inside out and had also taught the child in between. So she already knew what worked and what didn't. And I had to be very patient. I am generally a very patient person, but it really takes a different kind of patience because you cannot go at the pace that you would like to go. You can't. You have to follow the child's lead. And that also means you have to pick up on body language cues if they can't articulate necessarily what exactly they want and what they need. You have to be very observant. You have to be extremely flexible because sometimes you've got a great idea in your head of what might work on how to teach a certain topic or something, and the child will not like it and will not be able to learn, and then you have to change. But in that moment, so you have to change course immediately. You can't go and say, okay, well, wait a little bit, let me research, and then I'll come back to you, and then we can try again. You can't do that. You have to think on your feet. Um, and professionally as well, with my teaching method, the teaching style, I had to be extremely creative, which I am. I am a very creative person, but it takes a different kind of creativity. You have a curriculum, yes, but that curriculum, because in Namibia we don't really have a special needs curriculum, there are not a lot of guidelines. So you have to come up with your own. So you take the mainstream curriculum basically and you adjust it. So there I had to do a lot of thinking, again, a lot of researching, um, speaking to other teachers that have experience in this field. And that was challenging, but it was an excellent challenge and I loved it.
Sounds like you had a golden opportunity to channel your creativity towards creating the curriculum. You had the freedom to
Correct.
do it.
Correct. I had absolute freedom.
Have you explored this kind of creativity in your present job?
Not at my present job because I teach adults now and we have the material and it's already all worked out. Um, but certainly for children, if I teach children again in the future, that comes in very handy.
How was the transition from educating children to educating adults?
That was a very challenging transition, I must say. Firstly, because I am naturally more inclined to be let's say, the mothering type. So when you teach little children, you do kind of become like the sort of parent figure in the classroom. So whatever goes wrong, you have to handle it and you have to deal with it. And that, as for teaching, there's also a certain way I taught the children to explain certain things. And adults were a bit more difficult for me in the beginning because suddenly I had to change my mindset from teaching little humans to people like me and older. And so it was a little bit intimidating in the beginning, I must say. I just feel naturally more comfortable with children or around children, but then suddenly I have to teach students that are much, much older than I am. So there's that certain level of, there's an age difference. And um, I'm the teacher. So uh, that was quite a change. And I had to get used to that. I also had to get used to the fact that I could just speak to the adults like adults. And I can explain things like an adult would, and I can have an adult conversation, basically. But in terms of the teaching as well, it did help that I taught children before, because when you teach a language, especially if it's their second or third language, you have to explain things in a way that makes sense to them. You cannot overcomplicate things. And that's the same for children. You have to simplify it. So I was able to do that already. So that helped a great deal. But it was a challenge, yes.
What do you think is the possibility of you going back to the physical classroom?
The probability is high. However, I am not sure when. So the timeline is uncertain. I definitely want to go back to the physical classroom. I miss it. I miss moving around and, having a class full of children excited to learn, um, being active, because teaching online is quite a sedentary job. And I'm not used to that, so I had to get used to that as well. Um, I'm not sure when I will, but I definitely want to.
From what you see, COVID has played a huge role in directing you towards a certain path,
Yes.
right? Now, henceforth, how much are you willing to change? Or what would you like to change?
Right now, in my current position,
Moving forward from now. Yes.
I think I would like to, at least for the next maybe year or two, I would like to continue online. And even if I did go back to the classroom sooner, I would probably do online on the side as well. And I'll tell you why. It's apart from the fact that it's convenient to work from home, I've always made great connections with people over the past 3 years. So I am attached to my adult students as well. So it's not something I would just readily give up. But I think in an ideal world, and perhaps that is possible sometime, I would like to do both. Teach in the physical classroom, teach children again. I really miss teaching children. But at the same time, I would like to perhaps, you know, over weekends or so, still teach adults. I've made wonderful friends teaching online, and I've learned a great deal about the rest of the world because I have students from all over the world and with different backgrounds and different languages, of course. And really it's really interesting, and I really enjoy it because you get to meet people, you get to learn something about a new culture, and it's great.
This may be a tough question, but what's your preference now? Children or adults?
That is a difficult question. um Children, but 60% children, 40% adults, or
Okay.
70-30
Aha.
if we're pushing it.
Okay.
But yes, children will always be my number one passion.
What's your vision for moving forward in your career?
I I am not the kind of person that has, this kind of typical vision board and how where I see myself in 5 years, because I know that it may not work out that way. And COVID has taught me that. So I had a plan. It was I was ready. It was all set. And then something happened that I could not control. And I had no idea of a timeline. Nobody could say, well, this is going to go on for 2 years, for 3 years, for 1 year. Nobody knew. So I just had to learn to go with the flow and grab the opportunities that are in front of me as they present themselves. So that's what I did. And I kind of adapted that attitude now as well. So I don't really plan in the sense that I say, okay, well, in 5 years' time, I will be here and I will do this. I have ideas and I've got wishes and I've got dreams, but I also don't dismiss anything that comes my way. So for right now, where I am at, I'm happy. If the opportunity presents itself to teach children at a school, I will take it. If that is what I want at that point. So moving forward, I will do or I will see what comes my way. Let me put it this way. So I'm flexible, but I do see myself in the classroom at some point.
Would it be fair to say that COVID has made you very adaptable to change, very
Extreme.
open to change, and COVID has, in some way, empowered you to live in the present
Yes, more so than, I mean, I've always been somebody that can live in the present if I put my mind to it and if I'm conscious about it. But COVID definitely taught me to let go a lot more. Because when I was stuck in Germany, there was nothing I could do. I had no idea when I would be able to return home. I didn't have a job. And I was in a privileged position in the sense that it didn't bother me and it didn't need to, because I had some savings and I was with family because part of my family is in Germany, and I had friends. So I wasn't alone and I wasn't stuck in a country that I didn't know or with people that I didn't know. So it's a very privileged position, I realized. So I had the opportunity to take an unplanned sabbatical, and I did. And I enjoyed it to the fullest. Um, I mean, apart from, all the worries about, the people back home and how everybody's doing and the people that are sick and watching the news. But I didn't feel the pressure to go back and find a job and, find a direction, because I knew I would only be able to do that once I got home. So I just waited until I got home, and then I went and I looked for an opportunity.
Home as in Namibia.
Yes, home as in Namibia.
So let go of control, let go of what you cannot control, and go with the flow.
Yes, as much as you can and reasonably as well, obviously. But that's what I try to do.
If you were given the chance to explore another area of expertise, what would it be?
It wouldn't be a completely different area of expertise, but it would be special needs education for sure. So still in the education sector, but it I am very interested in special needs education as such, and if the opportunity presented itself, I would definitely go into that direction.
How did you know that the education sector was the path for you?
Well, I didn't know in the beginning. So when I graduated from high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I didn't know where to study. I didn't know what to study. I knew it was going to be in the area of maybe animals, because I thought, oh, I love animals, but I like children. So maybe something in that direction, but I didn't actually know. I knew what I didn't want to become. I knew I didn't want to become a doctor. I knew I didn't want to become an accountant or something, but I didn't really exactly know what I wanted. So I took a gap year, and that was the best thing because I had the opportunity to just mature a little bit more before I went to university. And secondly, I did an internship. Well, not an internship, not an official internship, but I visited the classroom of a family friend of ours. And I just, went along with her for 2 weeks to see how it was. And I absolutely loved it. I loved how she taught. I loved how she connected with the children. And I knew then, okay, that is what I want to do. But then I took that year as well to just explore different options in terms of universities. And then I came across Rhodes University, and I went there with my dad to have a look. We did a whole university tour. It was between Cape Town and then Rhodes University. I knew I didn't want to go to Johannesburg, where I am now. And I fell in love with Grahamstown. was a beautiful. It is still. It's a beautiful little uh, student town, really. And I fell in love with it, and I decided, okay, that's where I want to study. So I first did an undergrad. I didn't immediately go and study teaching. I studied an undergrad, um, and then I did a PGCE, postgraduate certificate in education, and that was that.
So it was a gradual discovery.
Yes, it was always in that direction, but pinpointing it to foundation phase, that was gradual, yes.
Okay. In your teaching profession, what inspires you?
The students, definitely the students, and
Tell
the
us more. Tell us
connection.
more.
So, in terms of the children, I just, I love little humans. They are absolutely amazing. They have an extremely curious mind, and there is so much you can teach them, but also so much that you can learn from them. And it just fulfills me. It completely fulfills me to be able to teach, to be able to also kind of instill certain values, within the children. You can still mold the children a little bit. You can guide them, and there is just so much love as well. And it's fun as much as it is exhausting, because you constantly have to make micro decisions in your head, you know? So you have to be flexible, and you have to be able to just deal with the situation that comes up, because you're dealing with humans, but you're dealing with small human beings who cannot always control themselves and their emotions. So if something goes wrong, or if a question comes up, you just have to go with it. And you have to be able to, you know, make a decision in that moment. What am I going to do? So I once read that, there is teachers are so tired at the end of the day, or just generally, because they make hundreds of decisions every single day in split seconds. In split seconds, you have to decide, am I still going to teach this topic, or is this question about something that's happening in the real world more important right now than, learning about the planets or something? And I find that to be very true. I know that at the end of term, I was extremely exhausted, but I was fulfilled. And every single day, I was fulfilled. And with adults, it's, of course, a little bit different, but I love learning about the student and what the student has to offer. And the way you can see the way they progress, children and adults. And that is beautiful. And that, so it's just human connection, I
We
think.
lost you for a while there when you were teaching adults.
You lost
Um,
me?
yeah, just for a split second, you were talking about what inspires you when you teach adults and their progress. Then after that, you said something?
Yes. So the same with children. So children and adults, you can see the progress in their learning. And I think fundamentally, what inspires me and what fulfills me is the human connection.
Okay, that's a beautiful answer, Simone. How do you stay motivated?
Um, Look, I'm just a human being. So some days my motivation is extremely low, and I have to, kind of find a way to give the students what they deserve. But at the end of the day, when I come to the classroom, whether it's online or whether it's a physical classroom, again, it's the human connection that then motivates me again, because maybe with the adults, we have a little bit of a conversation of how they are doing, and maybe there's something in their life that's currently happening, and we're talking about it. And then I realize how important it is that I am here at this very moment. And whether I'm teaching them language or whether I'm teaching children, it's it's important what I'm doing, and to motivate them to not give up on themselves, you know. So the students give me the motivation at the end of the day.
Does it ever drain you, the job, teaching continuously, student after student after student? Does it have a draining effect on you?
Certainly. Physical classroom as well as the online classroom, it is draining because you are giving and you are amongst people. So you are social. Even though you are teaching and it's your job, you are social. So that means I have to, I'm constantly communicating, I'm constantly animated, I'm constantly, you know, taking in what another person is saying and then responding to that. So, yes, it is quite draining, because then when you come to the end of the day, you really don't want to talk because you've talked all day. And it's, I think, sometimes, yes, you need your moments where you can just be quiet and be on your own to then be able to give again to the students and to be social. But yes, it is certainly draining in a good
That's
way, though.
that's perfectly understandable. You want to show up in top form for the people, the students you care about so much. How do you cope with this draining of your energy?
I spend, after a day of teaching, for example, when I was teaching in the classroom, when I was teaching children, after school, I would usually, when I wasn't at school marking, I would go home and I would have a little bit of quiet time. So I would either lie down or nap a little bit or go for a walk or just be present and not engaged in anything else. That helped. But I also found that, exchanging experiences with colleagues, or meeting up with friends or going to see family, um, doing art. I love doing art, helped, or being creative. Sometimes also for the children, especially, I would, you know, um, I would do some DIY things for them, or in preparation of a certain class I was doing, and that helped me to also just, unwind and regain energy. And the holidays were extremely important. So I know that they say, oh, teachers have so much holiday, but it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary to recuperate. And then you can come back to the classroom and then you can be, you know, animated and you can just, teach.
So, in essence, lots of me time and
Yes.
doing things that are completely unrelated to teaching.
In a sense, yes. Sometimes related to teaching, but the things that for me are very, um, I want to say, they help me to rejuvenate, are also things like, for example, cleaning my classroom or organizing my diary or um, doing something for the students, like baking them something. That also helps. So apart from, kind of trying to shut off from, thinking about teaching. Eh, You, I find things obviously that I do that, have nothing to do with teaching, but you will still think about teaching and your students, especially when it's children, all the time. So whether you're doing sport or whether you're just swimming or reading a book, you will always think of your students, even when you're on holiday, because when I go to town and I see things and then I think, oh, that would look amazing in my classroom. Oh, wow, I could use this for teaching. Oh, wow, the students would love this. So you're constantly thinking about it. But in terms of, finding time for me and myself and the things that I like to do, um, those are very, very important, yes.
I think, Simone, I think your students, both adults and children, are very, very fortunate to have you as their teacher.
Thank you.
What's your definition of owning your career?
Owning your career. I think passion, whatever it is, um, that is owning your career, because if it's your passion, it will motivate you to do what it is that fulfills you, and doing it to the best of your abilities and always learning. So I think owning your career means that own your passion, be proud of your passion that you've got, whatever that passion is, and find something that you can do and channel that passion into your career.
In your case, you're fortunate because what you're passionate about, that happens to be your career, right?
Yes.
There are many people in this world, their passion is different from their career. So what would you tell them?
In an ideal world, we would all turn our passions into our careers. But I do know that that is not reality. However, even though online teaching wasn't my passion at all, and I had to get used to using technology, which I didn't really like. I prefer face to face. I didn't really have a choice, but I found something valuable in it. And I'm here, 3 years later, still doing it, even though the pandemic is over. I could now go into the classroom and teach immediately. But there is something keeping me here, and it is something that I didn't see coming. So even if your passion is different from your career, you can find you can still find joy in what you're doing, um, and make the best of it, which sounds easier than it is, obviously. Um, but also in your free time, then do something that you're passionate about, even if your career is not it. In your free time, then do something that inspires you and that ignites the fire in you, because that is important. That is something that keeps us alive. It is something that keeps us going, and it's something that makes us happy.
So, in other words, in the broad spectrum of one's career, it is still possible to find the spark within your career. Find that tiny spark that lights you up. Would you say
Yes.
that?
Yes, most of the time. I mean, of course, some people stay in their jobs and they don't have a choice, and they hate it for, different reasons. And I'm not talking about those instances, where there's, some bullying going on at work or something like that. But in general, yes, sometimes you just have to look a lot harder to find that spark. But I think you know, if you do look and if you are more on the optimistic side, then you can certainly find it.
What comes up for you when you talk about your career journey for the past more than 30 minutes?
As in a word that describes it?
Words, many words, feelings, anything. What comes up for you now that you have talked about your journey?
Definitely unexpected, I think, would be my answer. um, when you graduate and you start your job, you think, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And yes, it might look a little different here and there, but essentially you think, okay, well, I can see myself doing this for like the next 40 years or so. And I never imagined that I would actually do the whole teaching thing online. Never thought about it because I'm not even such a tech savvy person. I'm not into technology like that. But I am grateful for it because I don't know otherwise where I would be right now. Or I wouldn't have worked for the 2 years that COVID happened. I don't know. So it definitely took a very unexpected turn.
Looking back at how far you have come, talking about how far you've come, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel proud, and it also makes me feel resilient because looking back, I can see that something that was thrown in my way and things didn't go my way at all. I was still able to somehow maneuver it in a direction that I am okay with. So yes, it was hard, it was difficult, it wasn't easy, but it it landed me here where I am now.
Absolutely. And we are very proud of you, Simone.
Thank you.
We are. Thank you for sharing your story, a beautiful story of strength, inner strength, resilience, the choices you made, how you adapted to change, going with the flow, not giving up, finding that spark in whatever you do. I think our viewers will learn a lot from what you have shared. Thank you.
I'm glad. Thank you very much for having me.
It's been our pleasure.
Thank
Viewers,
you.
I'm sure you would have enjoyed listening to Simone. Till we meet again with the next guest.
Thank you. Bye bye.